Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. We're going to dive into a loot guide for what to pick up and what to keep to make money before you have the flea market. So right now that's level 15 in Escape from Tarkov is making this video. It might shift around, but doesn't matter what level it is, these things still apply. Now, a lot of people think that the only way you can get rich is using the flea market, and it's just not true. There are a ton of items on every map in every raid that are worth a ton of money to the vendors, and you can still walk out with several 100,000 rubles worth of loot each raid. And before you have the flea, cash is king. Money isn't just important once you get the flea so you can buy stuff. Getting gear early raid requires rubles, obviously, but some of the items that make life a lot easier, you have to have cash to get. Things like the Lucky Scav junk box, meds, as well as insurance and repairing armor and guns drains your rubles pretty quickly. So having plenty of rubles means you can always go into the next raid well geared and ready for battle. Now, this video isn't going to be about items you need to keep for barters necessarily, or items that you need to keep for tasks or your hideout. This is entirely centered around items that are worth what they are worth in rubles. We'll do other videos on those, or we've already done videos on those, so go check those out if you're interested. I'm not ignoring them or saying they're not important. It's just this video is more focused than that. Now, my idea of what's worth keeping is centers around the idea of what's worth 10k rubles per slot or more. Now, this can dip into 9 or 8, and actually you can set whatever you want for your bottom end. I pick 10. That's where I like to be at. I tend to fill my bag with good stuff and I don't have a bunch of junk. But sometimes it's good to know a little bit less so you're not rocking out with empty slots in your backpack. But let's stop beating around the bush, get right into the meat of the video, and tell you what you need to be keeping. So the first items we're going to go over are categories per se. Things that you don't have to remember a specific item, but a large broad swath that makes it easy to remember in raid what to keep and what not. And the first of these is items with purple backgrounds. These are kind of rare items. Now, a couple examples here. We're going to use tarkovmarket.com because they have a great overlay. Go check their website out. There is a paid firewall to some of their stuff, but they're still a great resource for stuff even on the free side. But nonetheless, these free items you got here, right? Purple backgrounds, and this includes streamer items as well. But you got things like teapots, thermometers, military cables, fire clean. All of these are purple items. If they have a purple background, they are worth a bunch of money to the vendors, and different vendors sell for different rates. You can figure that out. The only exception to this is the hand drill. The hand drill is a purple background item, but it's not worth keeping. It sells for about 38,000 a therapist and takes up 6 slots. So you can do the math. That doesn't check the box for good stuff. Now, to second this is items with military in their name. Anything that says military in its actual name is worth a bunch of money to the vendors. Now, be careful with this. Some of these things found in raid are worth more because they're a task item. You make sure you're careful about that before you turn some of these in. But others are just worth a fortune to sell to the traders, so they're great to put in your secure container. Even if you die with them, you can make a little bit of money out of your raid. So this boils down to things like the military CFDM, the gyros, iridiums, military cables. This new military corrugated tube, which is one of the new barter items, is still worth it. If you get it, you need to hang on to it because you need it in your hideout. I wouldn't sell it, but it adds a ton of value even if you do get it out of non-found and raid out of raid. Now, to build up on this list, again, we'll use Tarkov Market. We're going to look at some of these barter items sorted by value to the vendor that they sell to. And we're going to look at 10K. So you can see over here, this is where we've got sorted over here on the right by item. And right at 10K, you can see the survival lighter, right? Oh, look, purple background, like we talked about it before. Now, the Geiger counter might be worth 10K, but it's a 2 slot, so it's only 5K per item. But things like rechargeable batteries, phones, tubes, Poxorams, all of these you should be picking up because you can sell them for traders for 10, 11, 12,000 rubles per. Now, this means that if you're even with a Scav backpack, which has 20 slots, and you have a 10K ruble, you're getting out with a minimum of 200,000 rubles in loot in your backpack that you can just sell to the traders right away, not worry about storing it, not worry about anything else, just turn it straight into rubles. Some of the other big items that I see people necessarily might not pick up and don't realize they're worth a bunch of money though, is things like Nixer lenses, tees, any of the phones, all the phones. It doesn't matter if it's a broken phone, broken G Phone X, Summit's phone, they're all worth a bunch. TP200, you can find these in grenade boxes, and while they're kind of a hurdle because you need them for security level 2, it's also a great thing to just sell to the vendors. LCD screens fit into this category. For a long time, I never picked these up, but they're worth nearly 12,000 per slot, so they're fantastic little items to pick up for that little hit of rubles for your, the 10K rule per slot. Now, another thing that falls into this category, 10K per slot, is stims and how valuable they are. And some of these have a great deal of value found in raid because you need them for tasks later on, but but more importantly, they're all worth at least 10K. So if, it doesn't matter if it's a Morphine or a L1 or what is the other crazy one up here? Obdoboloses were spawning like crazy for a while. They've turned them back down now, but all of those should be picked up because you can sell them right to the vendors and make money. Now, there are some second tier items in here, and the reason I want to bring them up is because most of them show up in computers and they're really easy to get. So things like circuit boards, magnets, CPUs, all of those are great to take out because they're at 8K a slot. They're not the best, but if you're having a hard time and you're finding computers, don't skip out on these. You can sell them to the vendors and still make decent money doing it. Now, a tip to this, we're going to add to this. We've kind of got through the items. These are pretty much all the items you need to look out for the most part. But one thing I want to bring up specifically is rigs and using rigs to maximize how much money you're getting out of raid with. Now, there's the one side of it to where, like, let's look at this AVS, right? This AVS is empty. It takes up 12 slots, right? A 4x3. But when it's in your backpack, it gives you 23 slots. It almost doubles the amount of space that you can take. So when you take this and put it in your backpack like this, not only can you stick somebody's helmet and their ears in there, you can fill this up with all sorts of loot. Now, you're really heavy, granted, but it maximizes your space. And you can do this with anything. TV110 or these TV106, 109 rigs, these things take up 9 slots and they give you 10. So it even gives you a little bit of a bonus of 1. But the kicker to this is once you get out of raid, you can sell this to Jaeger. Jaeger buys rigs. Well, a lot of people have a hard time leveling him up specifically, and you can sell them to other vendors as well. But if you get out of raid with like a scav vest or the security vest or even some of the other smaller vests that might not give you bonus space, you're getting more rubles per slot because then you can sell that rig to one of the traders and get that many more rubles and not take up any more space in your inventory. And this goes for backpacks as well. These smaller backpacks, you can stack them indefinitely. I don't even know how many backpacks I have here right now. Let's go look. I mean, I have so many backpacks that I can carry. I have stuffed into each other right now. When I get to where I'm comfortable and I can buy these backpacks or I can get tri-zips constantly, I'm just going to sell that whole stack to Ragman and it'll be worth a ton of money. And you don't have to save them. You can take 3 or 4 of these backpacks out of raid and sell them to Ragman right there and just get that much more of a boost out of your raid. Now, no air ring marine video would be proper without talking about crafting at least a little bit. Now, I have the flea market open, so it works a little bit different for me now. But before you get the flea, there's 3 crafts you should really pay attention to. The first one of these crafts we're going to talk about is going to be power cords. Now, power cords didn't make the list above, right? They're not worth their slots. If you have a level 1 workbench, though, they're actually worth a little bit more than what they sell to the vendor. Because if you get 2 power cords out, right, they sell for about 9K a piece. So that's 4.5K a slot. That doesn't cover anything, right? And 2 of them, that's even worse. So you've got 4 slots and you're only getting like 18K. However, if you go into your workbench and you turn those into wires, take those 2 power cords that are only worth 18K and turn them into wires, you can sell those wires to the traders for 37K, give or take. So you can actually turn 2 power cords into a 9K per slot item. So even though the power cords themselves don't meet the requirements of 10K per slot, if you're using your workbench and you're willing to burn the fuel, they definitely can. After this is printer paper. Now, printer paper isn't worth much. It's worth 1,000 or 2,000 to the trader, I think. But when you turn it into toilet paper, you get 2 out of them. So one paper yields 2 toilet papers. Those toilet papers sell for about 5,500. So now you're taking this 1 stack of paper that you got out of raid with. Now, this isn't for telling you to loot paper. What I'm saying is if you have these, you can take that paper and turn it into almost 11,000 rubles. So it's just a way to increase that value of those items a little bit more than what they are directly to the vendor. So the last one I want to talk about is kind of a niche one, and maybe it's not a great craft. I think it's cool though, because before you are able to get the flea market, you can take some worthless items and turn it into something that's not just worth rubles, but you can actually wear and get some utility out of. And that's this LZSH helmet. So it takes a Keck helmet, a duct tape, and 2 aramids to turn this into a helmet. But what it does is it takes stuff that's worth 22,000, I think, rubles, and turns that into almost 38,000 rubles. So you're increasing value of items that if you just sold them to the vendor anyways, if you did this with them, you get a little bit more bang for your buck. Or you can use the helmet and now you can attach night vision or some of the face shields and things like that if you get lucky enough to find those in raid before you have the flea market. And the last one is going to deal with the med station. This is the last craft I kind of want to talk about, and it's just a product of how you do things. When you craft Salewas, this doesn't have to be a full hemostat. This doesn't have to be a 4 out of 4 pain pills. You can use 1 out of of 4s and 1 out of 3 hemostats and turn those into Salewas. And what that does is instead of burning up that hemostat, that 1 out of 3, you get it out of raid, you put a fresh one in, take that 1 out of 3, and the same thing with the pain pills, and turn those into Salewas. And you get a little bit more utility out of those items rather than just burning them up and using them. And you get that more value out of that money you spent getting those items. And this works across the board with everything, whether you're using water bottles or anything that has a durability. It can be 1 out of whatever, and it'll still work for the craft. So just keep that in mind going forward, and it'll save you some time. But that's pretty much it. I hope this is helpful. I hope this helps you make a little bit more money out of your raids before you get to the flea market, and even after the flea market, because some of this stuff matters, especially now that the flea market's so choked down. So I wish you the best of luck, and we'll see you in Tarkov.